All right, how are we?
Very well, thank you. Very well.
I'm so sorry.
Swanny needs a
Weird
take
pregnant
too.
pause. Yeah. How are you, Swanny?
I'm pretty good, thank you very
Good.
much. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. I'm
You're looking
good.
pretty good.
Yeah, we had a lovely weekend. Tony and I went up to Indigo Valley and spent the weekend with Paul and Stuart, which was lovely. And I will say it's Clarky's birthday today as we record this. So happy birthday, Clarky!
Hip hip hooray.
Oh, thank you. It's been a fun day, actually.
Well, that's good.
Went and did some customer visits, got cake at one and wine at another. So, that's
I
not
thought
too
you
bad.
meant cake at one, like cake at 1 o'clock. And then you said wine at
no,
another. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Okay.
What? Yeah, no,
yeah,
one
so
customer had cakes and
Nice.
Oh, that's lovely.
yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
It was very good.
Swanny, what about you? Got
Yes.
any news?
Well, I'm home alone, which is pretty significant. So I have
Empty
Are you
nesting.
loving yourself sick?
I am enjoying it, to be fair. I just don't have to have – it's amazing what I don't need to do and what doesn't happen. Like there's no food in the fridge because I don't need there to be food in the fridge. I'm just waiting until they all come back and I'll go and do it. So I don't know. I don't have to wash anything. I don't have many clothes to wash.
This is why we were slim when we were single.
It makes a difference, I'm telling you.
Because there was no food in the fridge. We
There
didn't
doesn't
need
need
it.
to be any food in the fridge. Yeah, so 2 of my kids are well and truly into a big hike that they're on for it must be like day 10 or 11 or something. And the weather's been horrendous for them, so God knows what they'll come back sick, I'm sure. And my eldest son is on leavers, which you'll know as schoolies. So he's down south, and I think he's enjoying himself. He had a wonderful night last night, so that's good. It's just nice and quiet. It's just Arthur and I, and we're just plodding along.
Beautiful.
What about you guys? What about you, Schmitty?
Nothing else to report, really. We had the nice weekend, and other than that, just easing on into the crazy period. So every man and his dog now contacting me saying, "Oh, let's catch up before Christmas." Oh man, you had 11 other months to do that. But anyway, that's okay. So it's that period.
I don't really
can't
get that.
wait until I get my 2 weeks off.
Yeah, I don't really get that whole thing. I understand why people do it. Like it's the same thing with, like it's a real fight to have your lawn mowed or your windows cleaned. Everybody has everything done for Christmas, like for Christmas Day. Or I could care less. Do you know what I mean? I don't want the hectic nature of all that. I understand for people who work what it must feel like to go, got to get through all that and all the social things that you'll have with work as well. And
there's
then to
less
get
of
to that
those
sort
these days, I find.
So generally there is. I can see that even.
Yeah, because also I work in a government organisation. We're not allowed to accept gifts or anything. So there's less going out. There's less hospitality. There's like none of that. We just go, okay, cool, thanks, bye. But yeah, it's been a busy year this year. So looking forward to a bit of downtime. But
I think that's so unfair when you've got to a point where you're so senior in your career.
I can't get any
I
perks,
think now I should be really milking it. I look back at that stuff when we were with Foxtel, and I didn't even use this agency. I mean, I was the above the line agency. And I remember they had a Christmas party.
Was that the one we went on the boat, the James Bond one?
I didn't get invited to that one. There was another one where we got like our own Speedo bathing suit with our name on it.
We played volleyball. I was so embarrassed because everyone else was like a 10 or a 12 and I was like a 14 and I was like, oh God, I couldn't have thought of anything I'd like to do less than wear a bikini. I mean, imagine in this day and age going to a group of marketing people and going, here, have a bikini and play volleyball for your Christmas lunch. And yet we all did it.
And I kept it for forever. I didn't even fit into mine. It was so tight, but I couldn't get rid of it. Do you know what I mean? The thought that somebody had gone and done that as a gift and it was an idea, I was like, I thought that was the coolest thing.
Could you imagine
even if I didn't work for my body.
And if you did it now. But it was of the time. That was 30 years ago. So, yes, there you go. But it was cool. I was at that party. I remember that. And we drank a lot of bubbles. I remember that. But yeah, there was the boat one as well. I'm surprised you weren't on that. And
no, that was the above line. I don't think I went to that, but I know it was James Bond thing. I do remember it.
James Bond theme, and someone gave us these like transfer Diamante tattoo type things.
Yeah,
it's really cool. It was and then they had a helicopter came and someone came into the water or something.
It was a long time ago.
It was crazy, but it was really good. Was that WCJ? It must have been. Wyndham and Cater Johnson. It was a big agency anyway that paid for that.
I think so.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was good fun. Sorry, boys. That was the Sydney Foxtel experience. Quite
what
different
were you doing
to the
in
Melbourne
Melbourne?
Foxtel experience.
We went down to the pub after work for a couple of drinks.
We used to go to
we did the art
we went to the Crown or something, did you?
We did the National Gallery. The National Gallery one was fantastic. And the one at
the National Gallery, that was really
good.
That was brilliant. And the one at the Forum was really good as well. Do you remember the Forum one? I think it's the Forum.
All the things in the early days of Foxtel were incredible. When they were still acquiring new customers and really trying to get this sort of sense of, this is what Foxtel, the brand, is going to be, and excitement around stuff, Hollywood, and they had money to spend on it. It was phenomenal. It was I couldn't believe how lucky we were and how generous agencies are, because everybody wanted to be part of it in every respect, whether it just be from a business, but also socially. And it was
talk about
the place
career.
To be.
So I did that. Then I went to Virgin Mobile in the UK, which did it all again for another 8 years.
Yeah,
it was such a good ride. And now I work in government. Back to your original point about no perks. We digress big time. So I suppose we should introduce ourselves after that. I'm Schmitty.
I'm Swanny.
And I'm Clarky. And together we are
Trial by Wine.
And what are we drinking?
I'm on my first Coke Zero of the day.
Beautiful.
I do have some fancy water downstairs to bring up that I had from Bridge, so I might get onto that later. I've got a bottle of San Pellegrino.
You've got no children in the house and you don't even drink at Bridge when there's no kids around?
No.
Oh, God. We really have hit a certain age, haven't we?
Yeah, sorry. No. We talked about our Bridge dinner and we're talking about drinking and our events that are coming up drinking-wise, but no, there was no drinking at Bridge on a
planned
Tuesday.
Drinking, not actually drinking.
The other women have all got kids.
They've all got to drive and
pick up kids now anyway. Wouldn't even
that wouldn't stop me, but sorry, Clarky, what are you drinking?
We're having a Halden Chardonnay, which is one of our faves. So yeah, very nice. What about you?
Not buttery, because you don't like the buttery style, do you?
Mm.
No, we do.
No, it is.
Oh,
I
love
like them.
See, I love it. I thought you and I had different opinions on Chardonnay. Not that I drink a lot of it.
The non-malolactic ones I don't like.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
What?
What?
The not buttery ones. Non-malolactic acid.
I nearly learnt something there, but I don't think I'll be able to remember that word.
Malolactic is a fermentation process.
Oh, look at you,
that gives it that
oh, my
creaminess.
God.
It's very
I really
nice.
am clueless. That's very impressive. I don't know if I'd be able to
Come
use
on,
it
that's not
again.
way more about Diet Coke than I do.
Oh, yeah, the absolute
Yes, thank you for pointing that out.
I'm drinking a gin and tonic.
Nice.
So, and I nearly made a tonic and wine
Savvy
spritzer.
B tonic.
I did. On the weekend, as per my promise last time, I made one towards the end of Saturday night, and Paul and Stuart both tried it. What was your statement, Paul?
I said it was something along the lines that was surprisingly better than what I thought it would be.
Oh.
But I didn't think I could drink a whole glass of it. Not because it doesn't taste good, but it just, I don't know.
Yeah. And Woo, you thought it was all right, didn't you?
I didn't find it that offensive. No.
No.
It was all right.
And we both agreed that it had a greater flavour profile than wine and water, which is basically what a soda water spritzer is. But Clarky did complain of an aftertaste, which I think might have had more to do with the bits and pieces we were eating, possibly. But we can try it again at another time and see if you have a repeat of that.
I can only hope. I mean, I'm happy to just say I've done it.
You've done it, and it wasn't that bad. Anyway, I felt vindicated.
Everest, like, with that.
I felt vindicated is the point, right? Okay. So who's got a story for us?
I do.
Cool.
I have one. My sources are Wikipedia and
Excellent.
Britannica, and really just two different documentaries that I watched. And
They're
one
very encyclopedic references.
Yeah.
Britannica's
they are.
sources.
Yeah, they are. Just the way I'm going to tell the story is a little bit. I'm just going to try and be a little bit fact based, and then get onto some sort of discussion points around things that I found quite interesting, because it's when I tell you what
It's
it
nasty.
is, you'll understand. Well,
yeah,
it's nasty, but it could. It's not something we really need to delve into. I don't think on a particular level. We just kind of need to know what happened.
Okay.
And the documentaries are going to give away what I'm talking about. So the first one is a documentary that was which is part of a series called Crimes That Shook Britain.
Yep.
And the other
Jeepers.
one, which is a very short one.
Earthquake crimes.
The other one is a really, I found it sort of, I don't know if it was by chance, but, I ended up looking for it and I found this and I really enjoyed it. And it was only like 25 minutes, actually really short. And definitely if you wanted to get a sense of how these crimes affected people, I think this is a really very emotional way of looking at it. And, quite simple. It's a very sort of first-hand view and it's called Lessons from a School Shooting. Notes from
shit.
Dunblane. Yeah.
Dunblane.
Oh.
Right.
I'm sorry that it's a little bit of a somber one today. Certainly not much of a birthday treat for poor Clarky. But I've got some stuff going on in my personal life and I was feeling a little bit sad and, a little bit reflective when I went looking for a crime. And I don't know, there was something about, there's actually 2 different crimes that I'm going to cover, but they were both done in the Northern Hemisphere in winter. And there was something about the imagery of this dark, sometimes starkly, stark beauty of, whether it be snow or just that darkness that comes with that season and with these
From
crimes.
3:30 in the afternoon.
Correct. That just felt, I don't know, I just resonated with me when I looked
Made
into
it feel more
Yes.
foreboding almost.
Yes, exactly. And now I've sat down with you, Pierre, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't.
Well, I'll flip it a little for you because this time last year, Tony and I were in England.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes, it was dark and we were in the north as well, but
it is.
The celebration of Christmas in November was spectacular and it led us to put up our Christmas tree, and don't judge, on Melbourne Cup Day. I put all of my Christmas decorations up because I decided I was going to do the pre-Christmas thing like we did last year in the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
So that's just to cheer you up. This is the idea of a bit of Christmas.
I'm not
in there
going to
for you.
judge, but that's ridiculous.
That sounded a little judgy, just saying.
Well, yeah, I think that if you sort of have that in your mind when I'm going through, I don't know what it is, but it was just the imagery of it felt really heavy and quite moving and dark and I don't know, very somber. Anyway, so they are my sources, and obviously I'm going to start with a very famous crime, which is the Dunblane massacre. So again, in terms of what my recollection was, sometimes I like to look at crimes that I have a memory of it, but I need to be sort of reminded of what actually happened because, you're aware of it, but it was some time ago. So it was actually all the way back in 1996.
And it seems so remote. It's someplace somewhere else.
Yes.
When you're 96, we were pretty young.
Absolutely. In our 20s, probably first job. You're not kind of on that wavelength of understanding. We didn't consume news the way we do now. But anyway, so it is in Dunblane. For those who don't know, and I didn't know exactly where it was, Dunblane is very central in Scotland, and it's described as sort of a commuter town. So I think it's kind of equidistant or an easy commute to either Glasgow or Edinburgh.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also heard it described as sort of the entrance to the Scottish Highlands. The one thing that I would not have had any recollection of, and I was struck by, was how beautiful it was when they showed people going to the school. It was, if you could imagine it, felt like a neighbourhood with very high hedges and beautiful old stone sort of corners and street. It was a part of Scotland that I don't know. You see so many dark, dodgy parts of Scotland, high rises, it all could be, but it didn't give me that impression at all. It felt kind of very middle class and really, really picturesque. I wasn't really expecting that. The school itself was not. The school itself was quite a modern building, and it was a large, junior school. It wasn't it wasn't picturesque in any respect.
Mm.
So having said that, what I want to sort of go through is what happened the day of this massacre, because nothing had really happened like this in the UK up until this point. Like this was so shocking. I think we are so attuned now to being, it's another shooting, particularly in the US, obviously, that we are numb to a lot of it. Back in 96, this would have been, I don't even think you could imagine how shocking it would have been. It would have come out of nowhere. Like, it wouldn't be like, oh my God, it's finally, darkened our doorstep. It wouldn't have been like they were thinking it might happen one day. It wouldn't have even been in people's, consciousness. They would not have
on
been
their
thinking
radar
it.
kind of thing.
Correct. Let alone in, a little commuter town in the middle of Scotland. It wasn't like, it was a big city, fast-paced, stuff happens, you see gun crime, whatever else, it would have just not been a thing.
Can I ask, what was the situation with regards to guns? If you're not going to cover it, you probably are.
I will, because it's more what happens as a result of that.
Yeah.
This is kind of their Port Arthur moment.
Arthur, yeah. That's what I wondered.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I know when we were there that guns were not a thing, but I'm not sure if in 90. Did you say 96?
96.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the.
Well, yeah, I'll go on to that because it really was as a result of this. And
okay,
you see people were prepared to take action and make changes afterwards, and there was. So if there is a silver lining to that, and there is, I think, a couple of lighter moments in this story, it won't be the next bit, because the next bit I'm going to tell you actually what transpired on the day. But as a result of that, there are some really positive outcomes.
Lessons that could be learnt by other places in the world. Mm-hmm.
Yes, which is where we'll come to. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's no other way. We've kind of got to delve in and go into what happened. Pull the Band-Aid off. The Dunblane massacre took place at Dunblane Primary School on the 13th of March 1996, when a 43-year-old man called Thomas Hamilton killed 16 pupils and one teacher, and then he injured 15 others before he killed himself. So in terms of what tends to happen at these school shootings, nothing particularly out of the ordinary. There seems to be, that's what they do. You get in, you kill as many as you can, then you kill yourself. It remains the deadliest mass shooting in British history. So that's major, that's 96. So at about 8:15 a.m. on the 13th of March 1996, our perpetrator, Thomas Hamilton, who at that point was aged 43, was seen scraping ice off his van outside his home at Kent Road in Stirling. So Stirling is not...
Stirling's south of Dunblane, yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Like
so he's travelled... Yes,
yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Right.
He left soon afterwards and drove about 5 miles north to Dunblane. He arrived on the grounds of Dunblane Primary School at around 9:30 a.m. and parked his van near a telegraph pole in the car park at the school. At that point, he went and he cut the wires of the telegraph pole. He assumed he was cutting the cables to the school, and he actually cut the cables to the nearby neighbourhood. So that didn't quite go to plan, but that was obviously what his thinking was. So the school did remain contactable, like they had phone line. Yeah. He headed towards the northwest side of the school to a door near the toilets and the school gymnasium. After entering, he made his way to the gymnasium, and he was armed with 4 legally held handguns. 2, now I'm not great with guns because, again, I've not grown up with them, so I'll say what they are, but that doesn't really mean an awful lot to me. He turned up with 2 9mm Browning HP pistols and 2 Smith & Wesson M19 30.357 Magnum revolvers. Mm-hmm. Now, my understanding is that they are handguns. Would that be correct? Like they're not.
Yep. They sound like it.
Assault weapons. Yeah. Okay. He was also carrying.
They could still have handguns. Can still be automatic or not, boys? Were they semi-automatic or they were just?
Okay.
It's about the speed of firing.
No, I think they're just It's all manual.
Carrying 743 ammunition cartridges, consisting of, anyway, you don't really need to know that, but that's a lot. And what he was greeted by, or what he walked in on, was a class of 28 primary students. So they're called Primary 1, which means it's the equivalent of a US and I think Australian kindergarten. 28 little kids getting ready to do their PE lesson, their first of the day. And they were in the presence of 3 adult staff members, one of them being their teacher. Before he entered the gymnasium, it's believed that he fired 2 shots, one into the stage of the assembly hall and one at a girl's toilet. And in one of the documentaries, the reason they think that is he was at the school, or he did something the week before, and he asked a student what time they had assembly, because the kids had just come from assembly and they'd all dispersed, and then they were going to their first class of the day. And the boy who told him had got the time wrong. He'd said that assembly was at 9:30 when it actually had already been completed by them. So I think the idea of him going into the hall and realising the kids weren't there, shooting the stage, was perhaps the frustration of that's not what I think he thought they were all going to be sitting there waiting. Yeah. Can you imagine if they were? Oh, my God.
I was thinking 700 and whatever rounds of ammunition was overkill for, the 30-odd people that he ended up shooting. But God, it sounds like you absolutely
there to
planned to
kill a
kill
lot more.
700 odd.
He would have
Yeah.
just got
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
he could. Yeah. So Thomas Hamilton enters the gymnasium and he starts shooting rapidly and randomly. He shot PE teacher Eileen Harold, who was injured in her arms and chest as she attempted to protect herself, and he continued to shoot into the gym. She stumbles into an open-plan store cupboard at the side of the gym along with several injured children. And then Gwen Mayer, she's actually the teacher of this class. She was just amazing. She was shot and killed instantly. It was said that she had 6 wounds. And when they found her body, there was a big bruise on her. And it says it looked like there'd been her daughter says this, that there was some sign of a struggle. But I don't know if that would be possible given what he was armed with. But they said that when they found her, she was like a mother hen. She was trying to protect her little chicks. And I think when you really, as a parent, I've got, teenage kid now, you forget how little and how innocent they are. But if you really look, I think these kids were like 5 and 6 years old. They are those gorgeous little teeny tiny ones who are the sweetest little thing that you've ever seen. They're all gorgeous.
No, but they're just little poppets.
They are.
They were hanging out. There's a school up the road from work, and I was driving past, and there was obviously they'd lost their ball, And this one, his arms hanging out the fence, like our ball. It was so cute. I was like,
they really are, and it's that thing when you're at that age, you are. They're so little that your teacher is your idol, and
you love them.
Often it's a mum, like a mother figure kind of thing at school. This, everyone remembers their kindergarten teacher, usually in favourable way. They're normally the sweetest, most amazing people who just look after them and they get them. They're all lined up and they do this. I can only imagine. This woman was amazing. She had her own 19-year-old daughter at the time, and I've seen the daughter quoted. She said, the only way I could handle with the fact that my mum didn't come home was I think she needed to take them where they needed to go. So as if to say, wherever it is that they go, I'm going to be with these children and I will be with them. And I thought, oh, you know what? I know we find things in grief that suit our agenda and whatever you need to get through. But I thought, you know what? That's a really lovely way of thinking about it.
It's a really nice way.
It is, isn't it? And, for the parents, everyone would know who she is. They'd know she'd be this figure the kids knew and felt comfortable with. And I mean, it's a real, woo-woo moment. But when I heard that, I thought, gosh, I think I'd probably need someone to say something like that. I just thought it was beautiful. And for it to come from her own daughter, I thought that was really lovely. So Gwen Mayer, that's the one I'm talking about, the teacher was shot and killed instantly. The other adult present, Mary Blake, who was a supervisory assistant, was shot in the head and both legs. But she also managed to make her way to that store cupboard with several of the children in front of her. So they were doing everything they could, these women, to just look after these poor little babies. From entering the gymnasium and walking a few steps, Thomas Hamilton fired 29 shots with one of the pistols, killed one child and injured several others. 4 injured children had taken shelter in the store cupboard along with the injured, teacher and assistant or assistants. He then moved up the east side of the gym, firing 6 shots as he walked, then 8 shots towards the opposite end of the gym. He just ran him as shooting, right? He then went toward the center of the gym, firing 16 shots at point-blank range at a group of children who had been incapacitated by the earlier shots. So I think with the exception of one person, everybody had numerous bullets in them. It was just carnage.
Mm.
A primary 7 pupil who was walking, so I don't know what that means. I don't quite know how old that is, who was walking along the west side of the gymnasium exterior at the time, heard loud bangs and screams and looked inside. Hamilton shot in his direction and the pupil was injured by flying glass before running away. From this position, Hamilton then fired 29 shots in various directions. He fired shots towards a window next to the fire exit on the southeast end of the gym, possibly at an adult walking across the playground, and then fired 4 more shots in the same direction after opening the fire exit door. Hamilton then exited the gym briefly through the fire exit, firing another 4 shots towards the cloakroom of the library, striking and injuring another member of the staff. There was a mobile classroom closet where Hamilton was standing and another teacher saw him firing shots and she instructed her class to go down onto the floor before he actually had fired. And then he fired bullets into their classroom, striking books and equipment. And one child was hit where it passed through a chair, but for the most part, she's saved her class. He re-enters the gym. He dropped the pistol he was using and took out one of the 2 revolvers. He put the barrel of the gun in his mouth, pointed upwards and pulled the trigger, killing himself. So a total of 32 people sustained gunshot wounds inflicted by Thomas Hamilton over a 3 to 4 minute period.
Oh, that's the bit that you lose track of, isn't it? You just think it plays out over ages, but it's
3
so
to 4
quick.
minutes. You just think it's just bang, bang, just trying to whoever he can get, right? So 16 of whom were fatally wounded in the gymnasium, including Gwenma, the teacher, and 15 of her pupils. And there was one more who actually did make it to hospital but died later. So 16 children in one class died with their teacher.
God.
And I think there were 28, I think, in the class to start with.
Wow.
So it was just utter carnage. So what was happening outside the gymnasium? So that's what's happening. The first call to the police was made at 9:41, and I think he walked in at 9:40. Like it was like 9:39.4, like when the time was that the call was made. And it was made by the headmaster of the school, Ronald Taylor, who had been alerted by the assistant headmistress to the possibility of a gunman on school premises.
Imagine it.
They couldn't even imagine
nothing that had never happened before. So a bit like, what? Like that's very
no
fast
training in
response.
what to do.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Even the teacher who said, get down, you're like, what training would they
I know,
have had
right, in those
prior?
days,
It's just
nothing.
instinct, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just get down, God.
Correct. This is like really new territory.
Yeah.
For this instance, this is not, we've come a long way. We've gone backwards in a lot of ways since then, but you can only imagine how more baffling. This just wouldn't have, I don't know how you compute, but this woman who was the assistant headmistress, she says that she heard screaming inside the gymnasium and she saw what she thought were cartridges on the ground. So she assumed that that's what was happening. So that's why they've contacted the police based on that. The first ambulance arrived on the scene at 9:57 a.m. in response to the call made at 9:43. So there was another call that was able to be made out by the deputy headmistress called for the ambulances. And then at that point, the call sort of goes out by that point, and people are starting to hear about something's going on at Dunblane Primary School, we think, but it's not like now where there's all this terminology for active shooter and, lockdown. That wasn't a thing. You'd be calling saying, we think there's somebody in the school shooting children. Like it would have been a very foreign concept in Dunblane in 1996 for
absolutely
something, let alone of the scale with which it has happened, would have been unthinkable. So who was Thomas Hamilton? So he was born in Glasgow and he was the son of a bus driver and a hotel chambermaid, and he was born in 1952. And his father abandoned him his family for another woman when he was younger. His parents were divorced. It's kind of pretty pedestrian kind of stuff. They relocated to Stirling. But where things get slightly more interesting is when he's a young man and he joins the Scouts.
To kill animals?
No, not quite. More a case of inappropriate behaviour with young boys.
So did he join the Scouts as a young person and possibly receive inappropriate behaviour towards young boys? Continue the cycle?
No, I don't think that was it. I think it was more, I've never read that. It was more about him as a young man joining the Scouts in a position of leadership and being in situations where people were not comfortable with the way he was interacting with the boys that he was in charge of.
Okay.
So he began sort of working in youth organisations and at youth clubs.
Good way to get
But he
to
had
children.
been the subject of several complaints to the police regarding inappropriate behaviour towards young boys, including claims that he had taken photographs of semi-naked boys without their consent. And he had briefly been a Scout leader because in 1973, when he was 21, he'd been appointed assistant leader with the 4th, 6th, I don't know what that means, 4th, 6th Stirling Troop of the Scout Association. But later that year, when he was seconded as a leader of another troop, several complaints were made about Hamilton's leadership, including the fact that he'd forced Scouts to sleep very close to him in a van during a hill walking experience. And within months, in May of 74, Hamilton's Scout warrant was actually withdrawn.
That Baden-Powell, he wasn't having a bar of it.
Nah, with the county commissioner stating that he was, in quotes, suspicious of his moral intentions towards boys. So he was actually blacklisted by the association, and he continued to make attempts to become a Scout leader again. It just would change regions, whatever else. He was desperate to get back in and was unsuccessful. So in the end,
Church could take a few leaves out of their book. We ban
Who,
you
sorry?
instead of move you to another scout group, the church.
Oh,
the
the
Catholic
Catholic Church. Yeah.
Well said. And then what then sort of transpires is he then sort of starts to go off on his own and create a business venture where he creates these sort of young boys clubs. And I think,
What?
yeah. And by all accounts, like there's footage of it where like they're in gymnasiums or whatever else, and they're doing activities where sometimes they're doing gymnastics, sometimes they're shooting. So there was an interest in guns. And, you know, a lot of people really quite like the idea of these young boys. Their kids were busy, they were doing something, they were doing activities. And it really was, I think it went quite well for a long time. And then rumours started to come to bear, and there was talk of the fact that he'd been inappropriate, and then people were leaving. So I think from a business perspective, that's where things really didn't work for him. When the model that had worked for him in terms of these youth centres for boys became where people were talking and then people were taking their kids out. Well, it was a business. It was his livelihood. So then he really started to get upset. And then that was when he started sort of writing letters of complaint. And he was saying, you know, to the police, even I'm the subject of persecution. And the police are after me. The scout movement's after me. And he apparently even went so far as complaining to Queen Elizabeth II and his local MP. And there was just this general sort of idea that he was just, I say a bit of a dick, but like, oh my God, like your behaviour is suggesting to people that they're not comfortable leaving your kids with you. You need to just step away from that and stop blaming everybody else. This idea of, you know, writing letters to everybody, it was sort of like, I think
He sounds unhinged though.
Yes, but I think it was escalating before the massacre in the sense that I guess if word is out that you're not to be trusted, it's very difficult to set up a business that then looks after and has the best interests of young boys at heart. Just, you know, it
Generally,
fallen apart.
yes.
Correct. So I think it'd been found out.
There's plenty of ways to respond to that, but the way he's done it to just double down and go
I'll show you.
hard. I'm not the problem. You're all the problem. Like, gross, mate.
Yes. What I haven't done is I haven't told you any personal stories about anyone involved. So I'm going to go on to another crime now to show you side by side how these things play out and then what the outcome can be. But what I would like to do is, just before I move on to the other one, is just read you the children's names from Dunblane, and the adults, of course, the teachers as well. But these sweet kids, oh my God, just unbearable. But I think if we speak their names, that's a good thing. Victoria Clydesdale, 5. Emma Crozier, 5. Melissa Curry, 5. Charlotte Dunn, 5. Kevin Halsell, 5. Ross Irvine, 5. David Kerr, 5. Fari Macbeth, very Scottish name, 5. Gwen Mayer, who is the teacher, 45. Brett McKinnon, 6. Abigail McLennan, 5. Emily Morton, 5. Sophie Jane Lockwood North, 5. John Petrie, 5. Caroline Ross, 5. Hannah Scott, 5. Megan Turner, 5. And then
just think about when you were 5. It's the last thing you thought was going to happen, isn't it? You know, think back to when we were 5 and the innocence of it, and you just getting to school was all about getting to recess and then getting to lunchtime. It wasn't about expecting to be murdered. It's just awful.
No.
God.
So that was 16 children and their teacher were killed, and there were 12 children and 3 staff who were significantly injured. And there were 105 bullets shot before he turned the gun on himself. So that's the Dunblane massacre. And then what I want to talk to you about now is another massacre that happened years after that in 2012 in America, and how different and how similar things were, just to show you how far we've come in some ways, and not always in a good way, but how these things can still happen. So I'm sure you'll be aware of this, and I do remember where I was when I heard about this. I was in a car facing my 3 children in the back of a van going to an airport because we were flying back to Australia for Christmas when we lived overseas. And I heard it on the radio, and I remember looking at my kids, and my kids were little. They were about the very similar ages, actually. 2 of them were younger, and one of them was the same age. That my kids were little. So the crime I'm going to talk about is the Sandy Hook elementary school shooting. And it happened in 2012, 16 years after Dunblane. And a lot has gone on since then, particularly on US soil. But where is Sandy Hook? Sandy Hook is it was the name of an elementary school, like a suburb, I guess, of a town in Connecticut called Newton. Newtown? I don't know how you pronounce it. I guess it depends on your accent. If we were in Sydney, we'd call it Newtown. I think they might call it Newton. Yeah, I'm not sure. But it's about 30 k's from New Haven, which is where Yale is, and about 100 k's from New York City. So it's sort of up northeast. And again, it struck me as kind of similar to Dunblane in the sense that probably not a lot happened there necessarily. You could still commute. Again, incredibly picturesque in the winter when we unfortunately sort of get to see what transpires there. But it felt kind of similar in that respect. So this crime occurs again in winter in this sort of northern hemisphere. You know, everything's so dark and looks magical, and there's snow and fairy lights everywhere, and then this dark, dark deed happens. So on December 14th, 2012, a mass shooting occurred at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. This time, the perpetrator was a 20-year-old, a man by the name of Adam Lanza, and he shot and killed 26 people. The victims were 20 children between the ages of 6 and 7, so just slightly older.
Grade 1.
But again, that really, you know, we're talking about a similar thing, babies, these little innocents, and the people who are the teachers and the staff around them trying to protect them. So again, what I'll do is I'll talk you through what happened on the day, and then we will talk a little bit about Adam Lanza. There are literally pages and pages on him. It's very complicated, and I'll just sort of try and simplify a bit, whereas there was nothing like that I could really find on Thomas Hamilton. But I think it also speaks a lot to the advances that people have made in terms of these crimes that are driven by people who have taken themselves away from society, who perhaps suffer from mental illness, or their behaviour and their fascination with things that quite often relate to mass shootings. It's quite remarkable. This is one thing I really want to point out. As of November 30th, 2012, so remember this crime happens 14 days later, there were 456 children enrolled in kindergarten through to 4th grade at the Sandy Hook Elementary School. The school's security protocols had recently been upgraded, requiring visitors to be individually admitted after visual and identification review by video monitor. Doors to the school were locked at 9:30 a.m. each day after morning arrivals. These people, this is a different time. We're in a different country, a different time. Stuff has happened, and a lot of stuff has already happened in the US before this happens. This is something that is absolutely on people's radars, and this school, this county, whatever else, they have some measures in place for fear of something happening. They're not in the dark like they were in Dunblane. This is a different time. And, you know, there is something already in place, just wasn't enough. So we know that sometime before 9:30 a.m. on December 14th, Adam Lanza has shot and killed his mother, Nancy Lanza, at her home, or at their home. She's 52. And he's killed her with a .22 caliber Savage Mark rifle, and investigators find her body in her bed. So she didn't know what was coming. But she had 4 gunshot wounds to her head. And it's after that he has shot Nancy that he takes the drive to Sandy Hook Elementary School in his mother's car. There was a lot of talk at the time, and I've said here, that she had worked at the school. She, in fact, did not. They don't know why he went to Sandy Hook, which is just...
It wasn't that he went there or anything like that. It was just a completely random...
Well, I did read somewhere there was a connection later on, but they kept saying that there wasn't this connection with the mother.
No connection, yeah.
No. So remember I said that the doors were locked down from 9:30?
Yeah.
Shortly after 9:35 a.m., armed with his mother's, and I won't talk about all the different gun names, but this one is important. She had a gun called a Bushmaster. They're all his mum's guns, so I will come on to that, but just so you know at the outside. She has something called a Bushmaster XM15 rifle, and with 10 magazines with 30 rounds each. He shot his way through a glass panel next to the school's locked front entrance doors, and he was wearing black clothing, yellow earplugs, sunglasses, a black hat, and an olive green utility vest. He was there for business. He knew what he was going to do. There were reports that he had armour on. That was not true. But at that time, some of the people present heard the initial shots on the school's intercom system because it was being used for an announcement. Can you imagine that? So the people who knew what they were hearing coming through on the intercom.
Far out.
I know. Principal Dawn Hochsprung and school psychologist Mary Sherlock were meeting with other faculty members when they heard but did not recognise the gunshots. Hochsprung and Sherlock and lead teacher Natalie Hammond went into the hall to determine the source of the sounds, and they encountered Lanza. A faculty member who was at the meeting said that the three women called out, "Shooter, stay put," which alerted their colleagues of the danger and saved their lives. Diane Day, a therapist who'd been at the faculty meeting with Hochsprung, said that Hochsprung and Sherlock immediately jumped up from their chairs and ran into the hallway to confront Lanza. Sherry Thornburg, an aide, heard gunshots. A teacher hiding in the math lab heard school janitor Rick Thorne yell, "Put the gun down." Lanza killed both Hochsprung and Sherlock. He just shot them.
Sorry to interrupt. I thought you said meth lab for a minute.
Math lab, not
meth sorry.
Math lab. No, that was all me. I was like, what? Meth lab? Math lab? What? Sorry.
This school just got interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know who Hammond... Natalie Hammond was the lead teacher. She gets shot and was first hit in the leg and then sustained another gunshot wound. She laid still in the hallway, and then, not hearing any more noise, she crawled back to the conference room and pressed her body against the door to keep it closed.
Jesus.
I think she actually survived because she was treated later in hospital. A 9-year-old boy said that he heard the shooter say, "Put your hands up," and someone else saying, "Don't shoot." He also heard many people yelling and many gunshots over the intercom, while his classmates and his teacher took refuge in a closet in the gymnasium.
Oh, God.
One teacher was closing a door further down the hallway when she was hit in the foot with a bullet that ricocheted, but he never entered that classroom. So there were a couple of things in this situation again where they were able to, these teachers, and getting kids hidden, blocking things, trying to just create a diversion when it's just not worth his effort, or he'll just look another way or do something else. After killing,
it's over and above, isn't it?
It is
from a teacher's
remarkable.
perspective.
I think they just
here to teach children, not to.
And that's bad enough.
Oh, yeah, right. God.
After killing Hochsprung and Sherlock, Lanza entered the main office, but apparently did not see the people hiding there. And then he returned to the hallway once again.
Thank God.
School nurse Sarah Cox, 60, hid under a desk in her office. She later described seeing the door opening in his boots and legs facing her desk from approximately 6 meters away. He remained standing for a few seconds before leaving the room.
Oh, to piss myself.
Oh, my God. She and the school secretary, Barbara Halstead, called 911 and hid in the first aid supply closet for nearly 4 hours. Janitor Rick Thorne ran through hallways, alerting classrooms. He entered classroom 8, a first grade classroom where Lauren Rousseau, a substitute teacher, had herded her first grade students to the back of the room.
The janitor? Or
Lanza, the shooter.
Right.
The shooter, yep. And she was trying to hide them in a bathroom when Lanza forced his way into the classroom. Rousseau, Rachel Davino, a behavioural therapist who'd been employed for a week at the school to work for a special needs student, and 15 students in that class were killed. 14 of them were dead at the scene. One injured child was taken to hospital for treatment, but later pronounced dead. Most of the teachers and students were found crowded together in the bathroom. Imagine this. A 6-year-old girl, the sole survivor, was found by police in the classroom following the shooting. She hid in a corner of the classroom's bathroom during the shooting. Her family's pastor said that she'd survived by playing dead. When she reached her mother, she said, "Mummy, I'm okay, but all my friends are dead."
Oh, God.
It's so full on. A girl who was hiding in the bathroom along with 2 teachers told police that she heard a boy in the classroom screaming, "Help me, I don't want to be here." To which Lanza responded, "Well, you're here," followed by hammering sounds, which I presume are the bullets.
Gunshots.
Adam Lanza, the perpetrator, also went to room 10, another first grade classroom nearby. At this point, there are conflicting reports about the order of events. According to some reports, the classroom teacher, Victoria Lee Soto, had concealed some of the students in a closet or bathroom, and some of the other students were hiding under desks. She was walking back to the classroom and back to the door to lock it when Lanza entered the classroom. Lanza walked to the back of the classroom, saw the children under desks, and shot them. First grader Jesse Lewis shouted at his classmates to run for safety, and several of them did. Lewis was looking at Lanza when Lanza fatally shot him. Another account given by a surviving child's father said that Soto had moved the children to the back of the classroom and they were seated on the floor when he entered. According to the account, neither Lanza nor any of the occupants of the classroom spoke. Lanza stared at the people on the floor, pointed the gun at a boy seated there but did not fire. The boy ran out of the classroom. The final report into the shooting concluded that the sequence of events in rooms 8 and 10 are I don't even say the word, interdeterminate. How do you say that? Interdeterminate. You can't determine.
That's right.
Can't work it out.
Indeterminate.
Yeah, can't work it. Yeah. So, and I think it's based on what they can see what happened, what the children said, what people thought in the
Can't quite
time.
work out what happened from witness testimony. Yep.
He then he's just going around looking for whatever he can, and there are people that are able to get away. One teacher recalls hearing him cursing a lot and also telling people to look at him and to come over here and look at them, like really doing that.
Well, it kills them.
Yeah, yeah. The police heard the final shot at 9:40:03 a.m.
Hang on. What time did he get back? It's like
he went in at 9:35.
So 5 minutes.
You feel like it's forever, but it
feels like
they
hours
just
and
go
hours
in
of this,
and they just it's because the weapons are so fast that no one can get onto them to do anything to them. They just wipe out whatever's in their path. So the police heard the final shot at 9:40. They believe that it was Lanza shooting himself in the lower rear portion of his head with the Glock in classroom 10. Lanza's body was found wearing a pale green pocket vest.
The lower rear portion of his head.
Shot his face off.
Back, lower rear.
He might have put it in his mouth and shot at the back of his head.
I got visions of him reaching back over his head like this.
No, I'd say he put it to his mouth and blew out the back of his head. Yeah.
So he had a pale green pocket vest over a black polo shirt and a black T-shirt, along with black sneakers, black fingerless gloves, black socks, black canvas belt. Other objects found in his vicinity were a black hat, thin frame sunglasses, the Glock, and he had his brother's ID on him. So initially, when they found out he had a brother who was 24 at the time, who he was the brother was a strange brother, was working in New York. So could you imagine finding out that you're the person because they were using his name to start with?
Oh God, could you imagine it?
Yeah.
So I'm here.
It's a bad way to find out that your brother's done that and then be named for it in the media.
So he went in at 9:35 a.m. The first 911 call to Newtown Police is received at 9:35 and 39 seconds. So they were on it, right? Yeah. 911 dispatcher broadcast shooting at 9:36:06. So like a matter of
30
seconds later. Yeah. Connecticut State Police are dispatched in under a minute. The first police arrive behind Sandy Hook School at 9:39. They were so quick.
Wow.
2 more officers are, and the last shot is heard at 9:40.
A minute later. That is so fast.
Unbelievable. It gives me shivers when you think about how fast that whole thing's gone down and how people are trying to react. It is quite remarkable. It really is.
It sounds like he may have only shot himself because he heard the police turn up too. Otherwise, he might have kept going.
I think so. I just think he was on him. Who knows? Who knows? I will tell you a little bit about Adam Lanza. And again, it's not like you come to some great insight where you go, oh, that's what's happened. They say that there was no motive, and that is after they've done all of the inquiries afterwards. So he was born in 1992.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, so he was 20. Lived with his mother, Nancy Lanza, in Newtown.
Where it all went wrong.
Yeah, 5 miles from the school. He did not have a criminal record. He had access to guns through his mother, who was described as a gun enthusiast and who owned at least a dozen firearms. She often took her 2 sons to a local shooting range where they learned to shoot. His father had said that he does not believe Nancy feared their son. She did not confide any fear in him or to her sister or best friend. She slept with the bedroom door unlocked and kept guns in the house. He had attended Sandy Hook Elementary School for 4.5 years, and then he began at Newton Middle School in 2004. But this is when he starts to really suffer some issues. He was racked with anxiety. So, he started to get upset at middle school and he didn't like the changes. It sort of reads like someone who has a level of probably anxiety, maybe autism. And I think that people were very mindful that when something like this happens, they don't want to just go, it's autism or it's whatever, because then people who
there are a lot of people
have diagnosed, and
don't
there's
go
a
around
huge
killing
spectrum.
people.
Correct. You know, and I want to be sort of mindful of that as well. I don't want to sort of paint a picture that suggests that it's one thing when actually most of it came back as they still don't really understand why he did it. You know, but there were things that were going on in his life where he wasn't able to really handle school. He changed schools. Then he was homeschooled for a while. But at one point, you know, he was on the honour roll in 2017 whilst he was at Newtown High School. He was described as intelligent but nervous and fidgety. You know, he avoided attracting attention, didn't socialise much. Nothing kind of major. He was homeschooled to varying degrees at different time, depending on what was going on, by his mum and his dad. He attended classes at Western Connecticut State University, where it wasn't actually at uni, but you know how you can do courses that contribute towards getting your diploma. So he was able to do that through a combination of independent learning, tutoring, and those college classes that he'd done. But when he was 13, he was diagnosed with Asperger's. But then what sort of transpires is he then goes to Yale, and another diagnosis says that he's got OCD, and he was known to frequently wash his hands, change his socks, 20 times a day, all of that kind of behaviour. There was lots of sort of record of this because he had been going to different specialists throughout those sort of formative high school years, when he was a teenager with his parents. But then he either was put on medication, then he didn't like the way the medication felt. So I feel like it was this thing where they were trying to deal with what was happening. And then the father, who, they were not, the parents who lived together, they were not a couple. He says that he thinks that his son might have even had schizophrenia. But again, there were all these things that were sort of potentially at play, but not necessarily always, or they were addressed, but then the follow-up wasn't necessarily there. So, by the time that, in the months leading up to this, he's become very, very isolated. He's, spending a lot of time on his own, fascinated with mass shootings, obsessed with the Columbine High School massacre.
Red flag.
Yes. And then he also showed a bit of an interest in pedophilia, didn't want to be stigmatized. So it just starts to become that reclusive guy who plays
no one wants
video
to be
games.
stigmatized when they're really into pedophilia and mass shootings.
No. But you can see all of this stuff. And then
don't judge me.
When they, go and assess what's in his bedroom, there were stories about the mass shootings. His computer contained videos of gunshot suicide, movies that portrayed school shootings, a picture of himself pointing gun at his own head, a lot of stuff that sort of came to light, but there was never really a motive. There was never a suicide note or anything to say, I'm really angry with this person, I really want that done. It was just, he had just tried to block out the world. He'd blocked out the sunlight by putting black garbage bags on his thing. And
red flag.
There were quite a few. But, in the weeks leading up to the killing, his mother was considering moving to another town. He was just sort of descending into this sort of, we only really communicated with people online, really obsessive about mass murder. That was kind of his jam. So where I found some light in all of this was this little documentary that I found, this little 25-minute documentary, which is Lessons from a School Shooting, Notes from Dunblane, and it was released in 2018, but I actually think that most of it must have been shot in 2012. I don't think I was looking at reenactments. I think I was looking at stuff in real time. And what it is this incredible sort of connection between two priests. So when the Sandy Hook shooting happens, sometime after that's kind of like early days. Now, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correct. Is it Monsignor Basil O'Sullivan, who is the parish priest in Dunblane, writes a letter to Monsignor Robert Weiss, goes as Bob Weiss, who is the pastor of the parish of the St. Rose of Lima Church in Sandy Hook. And he writes a letter to him and he says, I've been in this boat. I've done this. You may not know of me or of us, but I am the pastor of this little village called Dunblane, and this happened to our community, and you are going to go through an incredibly difficult time, but I'm here for you if you need me. And then in real time, you see this footage of Bob Weiss, and he's just the most gorgeous man. He is crying as he's talking because he can't handle the emotion of what has been asked of him. So it's early days. He's talked about how he's done 8 funerals. And he said, at one point I was dressed like this. And one point I did this and we wore this, because he was saying each of them there were 8 that were part of his parish that had died and that he knew personally. And he said each of them are an individual. We had to make each funeral different from another.
To honour each of them.
Yes, so they really brought the children's lives into the ceremonies, and he is just broken. So he writes back to Monsignor O'Sullivan and they start this dialogue, and Father Weiss is basically saying, I think I'm having a breakdown. I can't stop crying. I don't think I'm doing the right thing by my people. I can't do this. I can't cry. I've got to be strong. And the other guy's saying, you're having a breakdown. This is what happens. It's totally understandable when you see what's gone, the devastation in your community and to these children. And they have this sort of to and fro. And then in the end,
how can you comfort people
if you can't feel?
But even if you are feeling it, what do you say? How can you comfort people who've lost their children absolutely pointlessly?
Yeah, it's just so bad. So Father Weiss invites Monsignor O'Sullivan to Sandy Hook. And I think it's sort of coming up for the 1 year anniversary. He's like, I don't know how I'm going to handle this, and how he said it will be awful. It will be so bad. And it took our community many years to have joy and happiness again. We were such a dark place. It was like we had clouds over us. We never thought we would be happy again, but you do find ways. And then, Father O'Sullivan, the Scottish pastor, says, I don't know if I can do this. I'm 81 years old. I don't know if I can travel, but he does. And as Father Weiss says, it's all about having him in the presence. And what he does is he gets up and he goes to all these, it's just beautiful. It's so beautifully shot. And they're like mothers groups and community groups and going to see kids. And he's basically saying, we've been there too, and you will find a way. And we've got this in common. And it's not, he doesn't say it's all going to be okay, because that's not what he's saying. He just goes, I understand. And then he gets up and he gives a speech, which is one that he's done to his own community. And I just thought it was so beautiful. And again, I think it's like 25 minutes. And it's like a long sort of TV segment kind of thing. But it's so beautifully shot. And these 2 men who are, there to help everybody else, and how they try and find peace themselves and offer that up. I found that remarkable. So I found some hope in that. And there are 2 outcomes, one in Great Britain and one in the US, that I wanted to sort of cover. So Schmitty, I think you sort of mentioned this up front, which is, how did this change the gun laws, or where did we start and where did we end up as a result of this to Dunblane?
Yeah.
So I sort of explained to you that really at the time I think it was a bit of a free-for-all. I don't really know what the rules were, but as a direct result of Dunblane, there was a public campaign was initiated, and it was called Operation Snowdrop. And in one of the documentaries or somewhere I read it was called that was because I think a snowdrop is a flower, if I'm correct, and it is the only thing that blossoms or blooms in March in Scotland. So the idea of hope or something good coming out of this. And there was in that documentary where they show Monsignor O'Sullivan, he shows the glass panel windows in, I don't know if it was his church, but a church. And there are 3 panels, and they go from the darkness to there's some really dark colours, and then there's this sort of like blossoming, and then it's light at the end. And each one of the children who died is signified by a snowdrop, like coming, the flower snowdrop coming out of the ground and, going to heaven and whatever else. Oh my God, it's a lot. So Operation Snowdrop was the name of the public campaign initiated in the aftermath of the 1996 Dunblane School Massacre.
And I know that's lovely, but you know what snowdropping means in Australia?
No?
Stealing washing.
Off the line.
That's not this kind of campaign.
That's not what they would call it.
No.
Anyway.
So the community of Dunblane, particularly the parents, the victims and their friends, launched the Snowdrop campaign, named for the tiny white flowers that were in bloom at that time, to demand stricter gun control laws. The goal was to secure a total ban on the private ownership and use of handguns in the United Kingdom to prevent a similar tragedy. It sounds so sensible, doesn't it? Public support, they did really well. The campaign quickly garnered massive national support, and they collected over 750,000 signatures, which they wheeled into court in London. They had a great media and political campaign around it. The campaign received significant media support, especially from the Scottish newspaper, the Daily Record, which kept the story in the public eye, and the pressure generated by the campaign was a pivotal factor in its subsequent legislative changes. and the overwhelming initial government reluctance to start with, and then the pro-gun lobby's arguments were kind of
Pointless,
squashed.
piss off. Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy to report the resulting legislation. The sustained pressure from the Snowdrop campaign led the UK government to pass new legislation. 1. Firearms Amendment Act 1997. This initially banned all cartridge ammunition handguns above .22 caliber. 2. A subsequent ban later in 1997. This extended the prohibition to all handguns with very few exceptions. The UK government also implemented a gun buyback program providing compensation for the newly prohibited firearms, which saw tens of thousands of weapons surrendered. The Snowdrop campaign is widely recognised as a powerful example of how a grassroots public campaign in the face of tragedy can directly influence legislative change. So I think that's pretty awesome, right? So not dissimilar to what sort of happened.
But in Victoria, when we want people to give up their machetes, we just spend, 13 million on bins. As opposed to we'll give you $20 for your machete, which probably would cost less than $13 million
and we put them out
be
the
more
front
effective.
of police stations and wonder why criminals don't go and drop them off
Don't go and hand them in, that's right.
Now, in stark contrast to that, what I'm not going to get into is the gun laws in the US because it's very complicated and it changed a little bit based on states. So Connecticut did something. It is more than my head can handle. But what I did want to tell you about was one of the outcomes of, or two. One very briefly, which was there was a class action lawsuit in Connecticut against Remington Arms, and they were the maker of the Bushmaster. Now, what I couldn't quite get my head around, and that's why I sort of read a bit, was like, how can you go after the gun maker? But they were able to do it because their argument was, you've marketed this as something that is appropriate for like a household to have something where it's actually a military grade weapon.
Like a automatic weapon.
Radio,
What do you need that in
Yeah.
your home? If you're defending your
Yes.
home, you don't need to be going dugga, you know?
Yep.
Yes. So it's all very complicated. It was to and fro, and whether or not, that, I don't know, it went on for years. And in the end, Remington offered $33 million to be shared by 9 families, because that would be the 9 that were from that particular gun where the children killed. On February 15, 2022, Remington agreed to settle for $73 million. So that's one thing. But this is the bit that I was aware of this because I'd heard this come up.
The thing with those settlements is they never pay.
No, because they haven't got the money, right? They end all up, and this is where the next point's leading. So do any of you know of someone called Alex Jones and a website or a podcast or something called InfoWars? I think I'm kind of slightly aware of it, maybe through, I don't know, the US elections and stuff, because it rings a bell, and I think I had actually heard of this. But this is the difference between a US shooting and what happened in the UK. So on April 17, 2008, radio host and conspiracy theorist Alex Jones was sued for defamation by 3 parents whose children were killed in the shooting. Prior to this, Jones said that the Sandy Hook shooting was completely fake and a giant hoax, perpetrated by opponents of the Second Amendment.
Oh, my God, you prick.
Yes, yeah. And I had heard this. When I read this, I went, actually, this rings a bell, because I never understood and I'd be like, what do you mean the Sandy Hook conspiracy?
That is extraordinary.
And now that you've heard it, it will come up again. You'll go, yes, I know what they're talking about now. I'd heard it and I never understood it. Jones claims he later believed the shooting was real. On May 23, 2018, 6 more families sued Jones for the claims. Jones was found to be in contempt of court by a Texas judge even before the trial started. He must have been in Texas, failing to produce witnesses and materials relevant to the procedures. Consequently, Jones and InfoWars were fined a total of $126,000 in October and December of 2019. This is early days. In October 21, he was ordered to pay damages and was criticised by a judge for failing to hand over documents. He declared bankruptcy in 2022 as a result of defamation lawsuits caused by the claims the shooting was a hoax. In 2022, he was ordered to pay $4.1 million in compensatory damages to Sandy Hook parents. 2022, he was ordered to, later in August, on August 5th, he was ordered to pay a further $45.2 million in punitive damage.
Wow.
A separate case filed in Connecticut reached a verdict on October 12, 2022, ordered him to pay an additional $965 million in damages to the family of Sandy Hook. Do you think this guy's got this money?
Escalating,
On November 14, 2024, InfoWars and its associated brands, so from what I can see, it was a website and a podcast, was sold to The Onion. at auction after a special deal was reached with the victim's family, allowing the Onion to become the top bidder above a company affiliated with Jones. However, in December 2024, a US bankruptcy judge blocked the sale, ruling that bankruptcy auction had failed to encourage investment. Yeah. Recently, now it's like $1 billion. So it's just the last one I could see, 9th of October on the BBC. Alex Jones asked the US Supreme Court to block $1 billion defamation ruling. Right-wing conspiracy theorist Alex Jones has asked the US Supreme Court to put a pause on the nearly $1.5 billion defamation judgment against him that is forcing the sale of his InfoWars media company. I mean, forgive my French, but what a fucking shit show. I mean, really? What is that? How is that really helping anybody? Sort the money out, give the money to families. I totally agree with that. But the real deal here is the fact that these gun laws never seem to change. Do you know, it's kind of like, let's look at what's going on over here, and meanwhile they're wasting their time on focusing on that kind of stuff.
Don't talk about the elephant in the room.
Maybe that's how Alex Jones gets funded, by gun lobbyists who say, just make a nice distraction for us, thanks.
Yeah, and let's keep this going and whatever else, But it just is remarkable how these, there are probably lots of wonderful stories I could have told about the US as well, about, in terms of social cohesion, things that have changed the community and what they've done in terms of legacy projects and whatever else. Of course there is. But I just find it startling, given the 16 years difference. And then now we are another, 13 years after, that we're still talking about conspiracy theories. We're still talking about the people's right to have guns in their homes. And the kid didn't have the guns. It was his mum's. But why did she? I don't know. There just has to be better control around it. I just don't see how anything's ever going to improve there. And one final thing, and I don't know where this number, I know where the number came from. It came from the end of the documentary, which was about the two priests, Lessons from a School Shooting, Notes from Dunblane, little 25-minute short thing. The last sort of slide, or the last thing that said, so this was in 2018. At that point, they said there'd been another 1,600 school shootings.
It's unbelievable.
And I don't know that where the jurisdiction is at, that the US only or whatever else. I would notice that. But that was to 2018.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, people are just so numb to it.
It was something I watched the other day. It was either Jon Stewart or...
On Facebook, I like this thing, so I continue to get it. It's this guy called On the Road, and it started probably in about 2012, something like that. And it's a guy from, I don't know, CBS or one of the US networks, and he just drives around the US and does these very personal stories, and there's always a feel-good aspect to it. Anyway, he started this thing years ago, and now there's actually a project where of all these families who, and I think this is kind of where I got the idea, because I saw this the other day, was there's a project, I think they're now making a documentary about all these children's bedrooms who have not been touched since they were killed in school shootings. There's so many of them. And they go to all the families, and it was a photography project to start with, and now it's a documentary. And it's just, he said, people have become numb to it. He said, I remember when, the first ones happened, we were all so shocked, and now it's just like, oh, is it in my neighbourhood? How does it affect me? Nah, next. He said they can't remember it by the end of the week. There are no names. No one remembers anyone anymore who's been taken out, and it's just such a massive problem. Horrendous.
I know what I was thinking about. It was Jon Stewart, and it was in response to the Charlie Kirk shooting.
Yes.
Where someone had said about Charlie Kirk, one is too many. This is terrible that this guy got killed. And he then went on to point out, one is too many. What about the however many, not millions, but hundreds of school shootings? And he named, 30 or 40, like he just called them out. And it was like, as he kept going, you just thought, oh my God. And then he got to the end and goes, and that's only since this year to this year or something.
Oh yeah, that'll be the last couple of months or something. It's insane.
And his whole point was, when are we going to do something about gun control in this country, and calling the government out about it? And
it's just not going to happen though, is it?
No, because as far as I understand it, the gun lobbyists have got far too much power, and the media have done a brilliant job of making people terrified.
Yeah.
So the other one what's the bloke who made Bowling for Columbine?
Oh, Michael Moore.
Michael
Moore.
Yeah. That's it.
I can't remember if I saw Bowling for Columbine, but in one of his documentaries of around that period, he talked about how the media has done this brilliant job of terrifying people.
Yeah.
And ours is starting to do that here, this Victorian thing, right? When I was up there on the farm, there was a news story about showing all these people, well, I don't know, maybe I saw it online. It was Good Morning Bullshit, one of those shows. And it was one of these, free-to-air ones. And they're going, all these terrible things. And they're showing footage of people with machetes and knives, attacking store owners and all this sort of thing. And every time I Google how many of these crimes are actually taking place at the moment, I come across the ones I know about, like that girl who got stabbed in the shoulder the other day and a few other ones. But it certainly isn't the kind of all-in war against the world that the media is making it out to be. And what the American meant, and I remember when I went to Florida back 20 years ago, being horrified by the everything I saw on the TV was all insular. It was all from local. It was all American news. And it was all violence. And a lot of it was domestic violence perpetrated by Black people and Hispanics. That seemed to be the storyline all the time. There was no world news. There was no news about what happened in the UK or in Europe or anywhere else. You would have thought nowhere else existed. And you would have thought that it was dangerous to walk out of your door, because that's what the media was telling you at that time. And I don't think that's changed. And Michael Moore talks about that because he goes to Canada and he walks into someone's house and the front door's open.
Yeah.
Now, they've got as many guns in Canada. And so he asked the question, the Canadians are all weaponed up as well. Why have they not had the same prevalence of school shootings? And this is back in Columbine days, right? This is a long time ago. I think this would have been made pre-Sandy Hook. Why are you not seeing that there? And the answer was they weren't frightened. They didn't have the fear of someone coming to attack them. They had the guns, probably more for bears. Canadians seem more concerned about wolves and bears than they are about humans coming to hurt them. And that was what he hypothesized at the time. So when we talk about it never changing, like the UK didn't have the fear. You didn't have a gun in your house in 1996 because you thought another human was going to knock on your door and attack you. Now, I quite regularly now look at my front door and think, fuck, what would I do if a person came in with a machete? And then I think, what am I thinking that for? Like, why have I suddenly decided that I'm going to be the target of a machete-wielding person? I don't have any illegal cigarettes. I'm not part of a gang because that's
But is that true?
Not anymore. That's right. Not anymore. So it's not just about the guns being available.
Yeah.
It's also about the responsibility that the media has in stopping the society from going, I'm in so much danger, I have a right to protect myself, and therefore it's okay for me to have a gun. But I think it's so hard for America because it's just ingrained. And this constitutional nonsense of the right to bear arms, fuck off. That might have been appropriate 300 years ago, but it's not appropriate now.
I did a quick Google search. Wikipedia said that there's been 374 mass shootings in the US this year.
This year?
Yeah. And so I was looking for how many school shootings there have been. So then I found one on CNN that says there have been 68 school shootings in the United States so far this year as of November 14. That's more than one a week. Like, it's no wonder people are desensitized to it because it happens so frequently and no one does anything. And I think that, to me, is part of the bit where you just go, I can't live with this. I can't give emotion to these sorts of horrors, once a week or more.
No.
Like, you can't function like that. It's just horrendous.
They joke about it. Now. Oh, what now? Thoughts and prayers? But I just don't understand how. Oh, I do, because I also see their argument for their freedom of speech and their right to hold bear arms and whatever else. But
freedom of speech, my ass. The whole cancel culture is basically taking your freedom of speech away. But yeah, go on.
They just can't seem to put their children or their community above. That's probably not really something I necessarily want to get into. I shouldn't have really raised that.
Above their rights.
Yeah.
But it's about fear.
Yeah, it's definitely
about
fear.
But I wonder how many individuals are supportive of it versus, people in power. And I don't know enough about the way that change would come about in Australia, let alone in the US. I know we were quite lucky with the response we got from John Howard, but
I think it was amazing, and I think now that they're so divided as a nation as well, that it becomes a political thing versus a bipartisan issue where, you know, when this happened, whether it be Port Arthur or Dunblane, where people come together, the different, you know, political parties, and go, actually, this is for the better of. I just don't think that's going to transpire in the US. They're just so divided, and it's terrible.
And I think the thing is that as individuals, then it doesn't matter what you think. If you can't change the law yourself, I don't know if there's a percentage that says, you know, more people in the US favour having guns than those who don't, you know, semi-automatic guns, an arsenal that would fight off a small army, or whether it's literally governments and lobby groups and that sort of thing, people in power who are the ones who are standing up against any kind of meaningful change. I don't know, but it just kind of, I could really empathise with people who are going, this is ridiculous, but I am powerless.
Yeah.
Because it does sit with politicians and with people in power to go, enough, I just don't care anymore. We are putting a stop to this.
Yeah. And then that's when I feel like it seems so obvious to us how it could be helped. And then all of a sudden you end up in what I call it's a movie, where I used to watch movies when I was younger and think, oh, that just happens in the movies kind of thing. It's so complicated or it's so corrupt. But actually, the older I get, the more I realize that's actually how the world operates on lots of levels. There is that level of, it's not just because this is the right thing to do. Sometimes like, well, there's someone paying this one off, or there's that lobby, or there's this. It's so messy and nowhere worse than the US. I just, God.
And we have an issue with
me.
shootings, so more people need guns. And we need to have people with guns in schools to protect the kids from people with guns. And guns aren't the problem, people are. You know, all that just nonsense. Just get rid of the guns, and sure, people will still be the problem, but not killing 20 people in a couple of minutes.
Well, this is the thing, right? Because it's not like those crimes cease to exist necessarily. If someone's going to be a madman and go and do that, but the damage that you can do with other weapons, you know, being knives, is limited to how fast you can react, who you can. But when you've got a weapon that is a gun that is only purpose is to kill, then the statistics are not on the side of the surviving when it's a gun in front of you versus a knife, or with, you know, a group of people who could potentially overpower you or something like that. With a gun, it's not equal playing field.
If people snap, you want them to use fists or stuff, not, you know, military grade assault rifles or.
Imagine your life though, if you lost your child and then you spend the next, I don't know what is now, 15 years, I say it was? No, to 13 years. Imagine how much you've had to learn about guns and the corporations and the lobby. What a shit existence that would be. You're dealing with grief and then all the stuff that comes with it. It must make life feel very unfair and very heavy. I think it's awful. I really feel for people.
And what's the number of mass shootings or shootings in schools that would make some of those people go enough? Because it's not 68 in less than 12 months. Like, God.
They tend to use it as the argument for having more guns. They just, you know.
Yeah.
But see, the more guns thing is even weirder because since we introduced gun control back post Port Arthur, the number of guns that people own in Australia has actually grown quite a lot. But they are obviously registered guns and they're, you know, licensed ownership. What they found is that the number of people getting a gun is less, so it's fallen by about 75%. But if you own one gun, you are now more likely to own 5 guns.
6. Yeah.
But the people who own guns in this country, and I'm not talking about illegal, the grey market, and I'm not talking about criminals, are often farmers and people like that who need them. And they're registered and they have very careful rules around how to store them, including, you know, the safes, etc. So this kid just seemed to have access. So it's not just about removing the gun, but it's also about protecting people around you. I read a story, I just, oh my God, when I was doing the research for my stories, which are all horrendous, but There was something about a couple who looks like they might have killed their 2 children, but said they shot themselves. Like this idea of guns being so available that these things can happen, whereas it's harder to happen if you have everything locked up carefully in a gun safe and you don't give your kids the codes and you don't encourage your kids to go shooting with you and teach them how to take out as many people as possible with a semi-automatic or automatic rifle. So it's not just – my point is it's not just about the gun's existence. It's all the system around them.
Yes.
It is, but we don't have the semi-automatics and plenty of people have guns here and they've got single shot or double shot shotgun kind of things. Nothing that is going to be used for those sorts of massacres that seem to happen frequently nowadays. And you're absolutely right. They don't. People don't. I mean, they don't see 68 school shootings on the news. They see their parents shoot a suffering sheep or cow or something to put it out of its misery, maybe, but not until they're a certain age. That's not something that you go taking your 6-year-old kid doing. They would certainly see people going hunting and doing some of that, but not killing people everywhere. I just feel like it must be all over the news there.
And then you stop noticing it. But you're right, our gun control, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that our gun control doesn't say you can't have guns, but it does restrict the type of guns that you have and the way in which you can use them and the way they're controlled. And so the ones that we're talking about, the automatic military firearms, you can't get them. You can't have them for civilian ownership. That woman owned one of those.
Yeah.
What for?
To go to the gun range with her sons. I mean,
I know.
Why?
Do you know how hard it is to hit those targets? I need one that shoots lots of bullets so I can pull the trigger once and...
Awful. Okay, sentencing. Thoughts?
I did think about that woman because, Swanny, I think you said the mother was shot, the mother of the Sandy Hook boy, Alex, was shot in her sleep.
She was shot in her bed. I don't know if he was asleep.
Yeah. So what I was wondering, that's right, because I was wondering, was she awake and did she see it coming or did she just not wake up kind of thing? But if she was awake and saw it happening, I wonder if then through her head goes this horrible recognition or realization of all the things she's done wrong over the course of her life that's brought her son to this point where he's got such access to guns, he's trained in how to use guns. And if you could bottle that emotion from that point and share it widely, maybe people would think a little bit differently.
I'm very angry with her.
So I hope she got that emotion, I guess is what I was saying, as a punishment. I don't want her to have died in her sleep kind of thing.
I think that for a lot of parents, that sticks with me. I mean, the fact that she had a troubled son, it wasn't looking great, but she still had all of these weapons in the house, totally accessible. I think she really needs to take responsibility in that. He was 20. He wasn't like a big grown adult. He was a child, not a child, he was an adult, had a young man who had difficulty all along. She really should not have had that stuff there. If that's something that she had, she should have had it off-site somewhere. I don't know. But it just seems ridiculous to me that she allowed that scenario to be in her own home.
I think we have to assume that she didn't know that he was like obsessing over mass shootings and stuff. If he's in his room, not talking to her and whatever, being what one might consider a standard incel 20-year-old, just all on the computer, I can kind of say fair enough. But I don't think anyone should have automatic rifles in their home. And you're right, especially if there's even the whiff of a risk of your kid getting hold of them and hurting themselves, let alone anyone else.
Well, one of the arguments that people who do have weapons and want to continue to have them is they talk about how safe they are in terms of how they're stored. I get the impression that there was no checks or balances for him at all. It's like he walked in and went, there you go, I walked into the gun safe. I mean, he obviously clearly had access to it. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he had to try too hard to get it. And I think I'm so disappointed in the fact that she kind of helped, really. There were no barriers.
I agree. And I also, because I sort of I went straight to her when it came to punishment. But I also wonder how many women of children with some kind of mental health issues are in exactly the same position in America because of the completely different messaging around guns
That's right.
they would get compared to what we get.
Correct.
Yeah, maybe.
And I'm agreeing with you, but just all of a sudden, as you were talking, I was like, shit, but what about
Context
how
is
many
everything.
more are there?
Oh, they'd be everywhere,
And
I'm sure. Terrifying.
it really
I
is.
just think the gun lobbyists and the people who sell them in the first place, like there's got to be something in that whole value chain that says you're responsible.
Blood
not
on
just
your hands. Yeah.
You've got blood on your hands. You've got so much blood on your hands. When does that come back to you? When does it stop?
I think it's even worse. You know, when people were saying that they used to do the thing where you get paid a hell of a lot of money if you worked in marketing or advertising for cigarettes. I mean, that's one thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine being marketing manager for
a gun,
an automatic weapon that you're trying to, like, you know, what are we trying to do? Well, we're trying to, you know,
selling it to kids.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have too much kickback. You'll love it.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. So for me, it is the gun lobbyists. It's just it's money. It's consumerism. It's capitalism. It's just the whole thing that America prides itself on. Not saying that we're not consumerist and capitalist as well, but this kind of the whole structure is, and even like the shit show that is the political situation is all because of this insane government that has got so many interests in that government, and getting that government to do and what suits me as the national rifle lobbyist, or whatever they call them, the NRL. NRA, right? That lot, let alone foreign interests that they worry about. I mean, fucking hell. As an outsider looking in, it's terrifying. And I applaud our government. And because we didn't, our lawmakers didn't ask us what we thought about that. 12 days after Port Arthur, they came to an agreement that said, we're going to control that. And so you should. That's what we put you there for. That's what you were voted to do. You are supposed to take decisions like that. Don't ask the general populace. We're stupid.
Keep us safe from ourselves.
Keep us safe from ourselves and from the silly things that we think are okay and not going to hurt us.
Yeah.
And same with the UK. They did exactly the same thing. They closed ranks on it and said, we're going to sort that. Wake up, America. You've got to do it for your people. Haven't Americans got a constitutional right to live without fear of being shot at school? When you're
as a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old, whatever it was.
Isn't that a constitutional right? I don't know. Maybe it should be. So I'm also going to blame the people who wrote the fucking stupid constitution in the first place.
Fucking.
Shouldn't have put that in there, should they? That was silly.
Probably made sense at the time.
It made sense because they'd just come off the bat of fighting with the
Civil War.
UK. No, the War of Independence. So they'd just come off the back of chucking the UK out, and they had other foreign interests like the French and that there. And so they were saying, well, we have the right to bear arms because I'm pretty sure the British had said, no, you colonialists, you can't bear arms, because they didn't want them to be a militia against them, right? So that all made sense in a historic context. But it doesn't make sense when you're talking about your neighbour having an automatic rifle. What's that for? I mean, I know that we've laughed before about that story about Bernie where he had the special rifle for the armadillos, but it wasn't an automatic rifle. I'm pretty sure it was just an air gun, even though it still killed the lady. But anyway. And Swanny's got that look on her face like, I don't know what you're talking about. It was one of your stories.
There you go. It always is.
Bernie. It'll come back to you at some point. All right. Any other sentences? Because this was a miserable story. Yeah.
No.
I really struggle with sentencing that. So
no, I don't think
burn
you need
it
to.
Down. Sorry, burn it down. That's all I've
let's
got
go with rainbows and lollipops for all the little kids who.
They went through a sliding door moment where just a moment before he walked in the door, they went into a parallel universe and they've lived a happy life there.
2 footnotes. One is with Dunblane. Andy Murray, the tennis player, and his little brother were both, I don't know if I think it is his little brother. They were both students. They were there at the time, and he doesn't talk about it, which is fair enough. He says he didn't really understand it. He was so young. And the gymnasium there was demolished and replaced. And Sandy Hook, the entire school, was demolished and rebuilt with the exception of the flagpole. That was it. So, yeah.
Not enough. I mean, let's just erase the place something bad happened. Let's not fucking change what caused it.
That's the stuff that people without power can do.
True.
That's the thing. They're
That's the
doing
bit to
everything
help the
they
community
can
heal.
because they can't
Yep.
do the bit that needs to happen.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. All right. Well, I think on that note, I think we'll say, as we say every week, miss you already.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.